I know I've kept you waiting a long time, and I apologize for that, but the wait is over. Here is part 3 of the Watchtower Saga. As I was saying at the end of part 2, my father and I agreed to study together once again. Only this time, I initiated the study, and I specifically requested that we talk about Jesus and the wisdom that he taught. I also made it very clear that I didn't want to turn these sessions into big debates, because in the past, as I mentioned, this is what happened each and every time my father and I studied the Bible together before this particular instance. So I made it very clear that I didn't want to debate, and I also didn't really want to learn about anything outside of the wisdom of Jesus. And my dad accepted these terms, but I have to say he did so tentatively. Because even before we started the study, when I said that about the Old Testament and how I didn't want to dive into that part of the Bible, he started arguing with me immediately about how, well, there really is no distinction between the Old and the New Testament. They are just one book, and it's all the perfect Word of God, and sometimes in order to explain the New Testament, you have to go into the Old, and yada, yada, yada. So I said, okay, Dad, well, if we come across something that you need the Old Testament to explain, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but, you know, let's try to stay on topic. So anyways, session number 1 went surprisingly well. There was no static, and as I think I mentioned in the previous video, one of my goals was really to uncover common ground between my father and I, our beliefs about God and the nature of reality and all this other stuff. So I really wasn't looking for bones of contention, because I already knew where those bones were to be found. I was really looking for parallels, for things we could agree on, and I felt that that would be a good starting place for deeper discussion at a later date. I figured if I could find some stuff that we agreed on, I could approach the conversation from those angles. But then session number 2 came around, and that one immediately blew up, I would say within 10 minutes of starting, and it ended with my dad being quite enraged and insulted. And for my part, instead of anger, instead of a desire to humiliate or to prove him wrong, I just felt a weird mixture of sadness and humor. So in any case, after session number 2, I had a birthday. My parents came over unexpectedly, unannounced, and I made a video about this little episode as well. It was the one where we started arguing, and eventually my mom said, please just come study the Bible with a Jehovah's Witness. Please, it'll all be clear, even though I'd already studied, you know, half a dozen times at this point. And I said, sure, Mom, I'll give it one more try, but there's a condition. For every hour of Bible study that I engage in, you have to study with me, and you have to learn about my beliefs. And that's when my father accused me of being Satan's employee. Said, you work for Satan. And I said, okay, well, if that's what you think, at least I think I'm Satan's employee of the month. Because in that conversation on my birthday, and in the conversation or the study that I had with my father, both times, my father revealed fear. Fear that I could somehow cast doubt on his precious truth, with a capital T, which to me is a sign that your truth isn't all that strong. If little old me can cast doubt on it, then I have to tell you, I don't have much faith in your truth. But again, those last 2 sessions with my dad and that conversation we had on my birthday, these were a sort of wake-up call for me of a different variety. Because up until this point, I still had respect for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I still thought that despite a lot of the nonsense and irrational things that they believed, they were more or less harmless. But after the sessions I had with my dad, and after that conversation on my birthday, I realized that it wasn't so harmless after all. Because if an organization, an ideology, or a cult could reduce your ability to think freely so drastically, the way that the Watchtower Society had done to my parents, if it could make them believe things that had no internal consistency or logic to them, if it could embroil people in this circular logic that the Jehovah's Witnesses are so fond of using, maybe it wasn't so harmless. And then I started thinking about other stuff I had seen and heard in my short time inside the organization. One of the things that always stuck out to me, even from the beginning, was the obsession with outer appearance. The strict dress code, the fact that brothers couldn't grow facial hair unless it was a cheesy porn star mustache, the fact that you had to wear a suit to every meeting, and the fact that the brothers especially seemed to be very, very vain about all of this. My dad spent so much money on suits after he became a witness, and I was like, why? What's going on? Like, it became almost like a new obsession for him. So all throughout this time, my parents have always been super critical of my appearance, which I find ironic, because it's like, aren't you guys spiritual? Shouldn't you be concerned with the contents of the soul or the character, rather than how I look, you know, my beard, my shaved head? If you've been watching my videos for a while, you've probably realized that I go through cycles with my appearance, with my hair especially. I shave my head in the summer, and then I let it grow out in the fall, and then I have it longer in the wintertime, and then when springtime comes around, I shave that thing right back down to a number 1. And so, you know, when I have long hair, my parents are like, oh, you look so good, you look so good. And then when I shave, they're like, oh, why do you gotta do that? You look so tough. And this is like no word of a lie every single time for the last 15 years that I've shaved my head or let it grow long. They always comment, every single time. They comment on the beard, they comment on the hair. And it's not so much negative as it is, well, actually, no, that's a lie. It is negative when it's not what they like, it's negative. When it's not JW approved beauty standards, they'll comment in negative fashion. And then when I have, you know, things that they like longer hair, then it's positive. So I always found that odd, because my developing spirituality tells me that all of the important stuff is inward facing, not outward facing, and how you look on the outside is irrelevant. These are some of the revelations that I've experienced on my path, and I'm not saying that every path has to follow mine, but I still did find it very odd that they're so obsessed with outer appearance, outer behavior, you know, who you have sex with, when you have sex with them, you know. Anyways, I don't want to get into specific doctrines because I could make many other videos on that, but what I want to say is after those 2 study sessions and after my birthday, I started to feel that maybe it wasn't so harmless, and I made the mistake of going online and looking things up, and I found a lot of disturbing information, a lot of frustrating information, you know, like the beards thing or the wearing skinny pants thing. Like, for me, the most important thing that a human can ever achieve or cultivate in his or her life is inner freedom. The freedom to think freely, and not along the patterns that are prescribed by your particular culture or religion, but I mean really, truly freely. To think outside of the box, if you will, as the old cliche goes. So any organization that restricts or narrows a person's thinking, to me, is, you know, that's a sin. That is sinful to me. And, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses talk about free will. They talk about the importance of it and how God gave us free will and all this stuff. Well, I believe that too, but I believe that what they're doing is an affront to that. It is like spitting in God's face. God gave you free will, not so that you could follow one narrow prescribed path to finding God, but so that you could explore anything and everything that you desire. And if that leads you to suffering, then that's the consequence of free will. If it leads you to bliss, pleasure, contentment, and a feeling of meaning and purpose in your life, then again, that's your choice. Those are the consequences of free will. To me, that's what it means. It has nothing to do with following the Bible or following the so-called Word of God. If there is a Word of God, then it's found in your own heart, not in some old dusty-ass book. So what I found as I continue to look into it and to reflect on my own developing spirituality and to live my own truth is that essentially my parents were following a belief system that was diametrically opposed to my own. They were living their truth, and their truth happened to be the total opposite of my own truth. Their values, their priorities, and the vast majority of the principles that they live by, I found abhorrent. I found insulting. I was talking to my brother Andy a few weeks ago, and I told him the exact same thing. I said, I feel like they were living beliefs that were diametrically opposed to my own. And he said, well, what do you believe? And I said, well, that's a good question. I had to think about it. And basically what I believe is that truth is personal and it's lived. It's not spoken. It's not written. And so to me, it's all about the truth that you recognize and how you live that truth and the impact it has on the people around you, both locally and globally. I believe that spirituality is a solitary pursuit. It can be pursued in good company, but don't get confused. The people you are in company with are on their own paths, and that's not your path. So we can hang out together, we can congregate, we can support one another and love one another, but your path is still your path, and I'll help you walk along it. I'll give you the support you need to get further along your path, but I'm not going to try to get you to come to my path, and I'm not going to tell you that your path is the wrong path, even if I may feel that way or think so. I'm not going to go around preaching my truth and telling you that your truth is a lie. And like I said, the number one most important thing to me is inner freedom, and that's acquired through knowledge of self. So instead of studying this ancient book that's going to tell you nothing useful, I think you should study the scriptures of your own heart. You should study your own mind, figure out how it works and how it affects your experience of life. So again, totally inward facing. To me, anything external and outward facing is a result or a consequence of what's happening in here. It has nothing to do with my beard or my shaved head or the clothes that I wear, the skinny jeans that I wear. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with who I have sex with. If I'm gay, straight, makes no difference. None of that matters. That's all outward facing stuff. As long as it doesn't have negative physical consequences on the people around you, right? That's where I draw the line. It's like, are you hurting someone else? Are you fucking up their stuff? Like, are you destroying their property? Are you injuring them? No. Then I consider you to be a moral person, moral character. You're not stealing, you're not hurting, you're not impacting me in any way, so what do I care what you do? If you want to do drugs or have sex with, multiple people or, I don't know, whatever you're into, I don't care, as long as it doesn't hurt me or others. It's between consenting adults. There are no negative consequences to the people around you. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time worrying about what you're doing if that's the case. But you see, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're concerned about every little thing that you do. They think there's some invisible sky daddy sitting up there, and every time you touch your dick or, have a bad thought about something, he's keeping score. You think the creator of the universe gives a shit about you? You're intergalactic gut bacteria. You're an ant. And I'm not trying to say that to belittle you or to make your experience feel less than it is. It's a beautiful experience. But there's a quadrillion, trillion, bazillion experiences just like it happening across the universe as we speak. Even the rocks are having an experience. We just can't fathom what kind of experience it is because that's a very low level of consciousness. But it's an experience. And if you ever become a rock, you will know and you'll be like, shit, Ollie was right. Being a rock is an experience. Of course it is. Anything that is an experience. It's the universe having that experience. You're one of the universe's experiences right now. It's happening. You're happening. You're what the universe is doing right here, right now. That's what I believe. I started to see that what my parents believed and what I believed were at odds. And I started to feel like I was betraying my own beliefs, like I was betraying myself by associating with them, by hanging out with them, almost like I was being complicit or supporting them. It's just like I said about the paths, right? My parents are on their spiritual path. It's for them. But my path is going the opposite direction. And basically what it comes down to is that I wasn't comfortable supporting them on their spiritual path anymore. So as I learned more about the sex scandals and the abuse and the high control and the cult tactics and the shunning and all that kind of stuff, I basically got to a point about a year ago where I said, I can't hang out with you guys anymore, because doing so would be like supporting the stuff that your cult does. So that's how I disfellowshipped my parents. But don't worry, I'm not actually disfellowshipping them. I saw them a month ago and I said hi to them, gave them hugs. You know, I'm not like them. I'm not going to turn away and pretend like I don't know them, like they don't exist. That's, again, that goes against my beliefs. I can't do stuff like that to people, especially people I love. So I would never shun someone, but I certainly would break off contact. And, you know, if I don't see you in the street or if I don't run into you in town, I'm not going to go out of my way to reach out to you and make plans with you and hang out with you. So that's what it comes down to for me. Anyways, that's the end of the Watchtower Saga. I hope that you enjoyed it. Hope that it was good for you. I have mixed feelings about it. I've had a few people want to know more detail, and I've had lots of people sort of assume that I was born a witness or all this stuff. So I just wanted to get into a bit more detail and lay it all out there. And I just wanted to say too, like, I know there's probably a lot of you now that are following this channel who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Just a friendly disclaimer, this is not my subject matter, and I may talk about it from time to time, and I certainly will continue to talk about it. But I highly encourage you to check out some of my non-JW videos, because that'll give you a sense of what I'm really about, and you may not want to follow this channel once you get that. So, you know, I don't want to waste your time, basically. So check out some of my non-Jehovah's Witness related videos. If you like it, then awesome. We're going to get along great. If you don't, tune in when I drop my next Jehovah's Witness related video. Like I said, I'll probably do one about different doctrines or beliefs that I've argued against. I've got about 5 right off the top of my head that I could go into right now. So anyway, thanks for joining me for this. And whether you're a former Jehovah's Witness or somebody else, doesn't matter who you are, I love you. And what I wish for you most of all is for you to be able to live well. So anything I can do to help, reach out to me and I will do my best. Cheers.